Have you ever finished a game and found yourself wanting more? Like when you're at a fancy restaurant and realize you ate the entire entree in one bite? The brand new incremental idle game, The Perfect Tower 2, is exactly not that. Both because there's enough game here to feed you for weeks, and because I don't think you'll ever finish it. Fancy restaurant, meet hot dog eating contest. Welcome to my Worth Your Time series, where I break down whether in this attention-hungry economy, if games are worth your time in addition to being just worth your money. Since today's title is free but a massive time sink, we'll exclusively be talking about value for your time. The Perfect Tower 2 is almost impossible to pin down, which is why I call it the everything game. What starts out as a title-accurate mission to build the perfect tower that can easily dominate any tower defense game quickly descends into a massive sprawl of genre-bouncing and interconnected gameplay. I couldn't possibly review all that this game has to offer in such a short span, but I will give you the highlights. The end goal of Perfect Tower, as I mentioned, is to level up your tower. However, the bulk of your time is actually spent acquiring many, and I mean many, different types of resources that are bought, generated, and spent in a crazy loop centered around the game's 12 buildings, each containing their own unique gameplay mechanics. Thankfully, you unlock these buildings gradually as you progress, so you only have to understand a few to start. All buildings exist in an overworld, which is almost solely for show, as you use tabs to swap between buildings at will. For example, the construction firm is the building of buildings, letting you build and upgrade your other buildings. The workshop is where you upgrade your tower skills, and the mine is where you dig for resources that are used in other buildings to generate resources for even more buildings. And if you thought I've said the word buildings enough for one video, boy, are you in for a treat. Most buildings require their own different colored resource to use their specific function, but thankfully these are bought using one universal currency. We'll call them the white boxes, so you can usually just keep track of your white boxes to make resource management easier. There's an insane amount of content in this game, from clicking tiles in the mine's digging lottery game, to amassing an automation empire through complex production trees in the factory, to using your space allocation skills in the power plant's electrical grid minigame. Having to digest all of this, I felt a strange disconnection from the game's main quest, upgrading your tower, since the way of progressing toward that goal is pretty vague and indirect. I couldn't quite figure out what I was supposed to prioritize, as the game quickly became an integrated web of resources used to buy upgrades or machines that are then used to generate more resources. Just when I thought I was coming to grips with one subsection of the game, enter another tutorial of completely new mechanics. My mind was spinning. It wasn't until I unlocked the factory and actually understood how to use it that I started to feel the automation bliss that is synonymous with a game like Factorio or Satisfactory. I found more fun after changing my incentive from a tower focus toward the accumulation of a massive resource stockpile instead. Part of the reason for this switch was becoming aware that the tower defense sections of the game are incredibly boring. What started out as the center of action gradually becomes the longest time bottleneck in the game, where you had better be prepared to scroll on your phone or maybe finish that Duolingo lesson that you've been getting pestered about by that cursed owl. Once you figure out that staying alive means upgrading your tower before the mission, not during, there's little need to do much during the wave defenses, at least as far as I got. Unlike other sectors of the game that allow you to hop between buildings while waiting for tasks to complete, which keeps you engaged in the frantic micromanagement of it all, the tower defense stages are the opposite vibe. They lock you into that area, meaning you have to sit there until you complete the stage or die trying. One of the biggest sellers for The Perfect Tower 2 is that there is likely something fun for everyone. You may try the game and find that functions I disliked were actually the ones that resonated with you most. For me, I enjoyed the automation and crafting trees in the factory, the dopamine-hitting slot machine of the mine, and of course the massive boss fights that get more difficult with each completion. The boss fights were one of the very few opportunities for actual skill-based gameplay that I unlocked, but I wish there were more. Game trailers allude to other active gameplay segments like space shoot 'em ups, rail shooting, traditional tower defense, and more, but unfortunately, after 12 or so hours of playing, I had only unlocked one boss battle, and I feel like by that point the game had already thrown too many elements at me for me to digest. This brings me to my first major complaint about the game: pacing. There's certainly a lot of potential for crazy and exciting number go up moments, but they are hidden underneath mountains of gameplay mechanics that my puny human brain just can't fathom. It was hard for me to really decide what activities I wanted to pursue, either for progression's sake or for how fun they were, because neither fun nor efficiency could be easily teased out. This is a game that should be renamed to Tutorial Simulator. Granted, I've stayed far away from games with Mariana Trench depth of mechanics, like Crusader Kings or Stellaris, so those who are familiar with those might hit the ground running here. But for me, even spacing out the tutorials through building unlocks was not enough to combat the sheer amount of text screens you have to click through. An idle game without simplicity seems like an oxymoron, and the worst part is, I found myself finishing reading some of the tutorials only to discover I still had no idea what half of the new features did. There is just too much to see that it's remarkably easy to miss entire game pathways, or just willingly ignore them due to information overload. Pathways that could be really effective or even a lot of fun. I spent roughly 10 hours stumbling about, sometimes waiting around while I played my Switch, before I unlocked what I believe to be the game's final buildings. Despite this accomplishment, I still feel like I was really only 10 to 20% of the way through the game, due to the amount of prestiges I still needed to complete, and other features I hadn't yet unlocked. Sadly, after 12 to 15 hours, I was completely drained, and I would probably never have gotten this review out if I was dead set on completing everything. Graphics-wise, the game is not very impressive or unique in any memorable way. The art style seems very dated and Comic Sans-like, but for a free game, this is only a minor gripe from someone who prioritizes gameplay over looks. However, what I disliked even more was the music, playing the same generic theme for 95% of the game, driving me to turning my sound off for much of the playthrough. I feel like idle games could really improve retention by including at least a small rotation of tracks, though I understand this is inherently a problem for lower budget games. If you want your idle games to be less about simplicity and more about connecting the dots between processes and achieving ultimate efficiency, closer to an automation game, then The Perfect Tower 2 could really be the game for you. Keep in mind that you may be in for a slog until the game really clicks, with tutorials that seemingly never end, yet still leave you in a state of confusion, slowing the game's early pace to the speed of text screens on so many unnecessary mechanics. The Perfect Tower 2 is free on Steam, so it's worth trying out, but I do see the game having a large player drop-off before it really ramps up into the good stuff. But the real question is it worth your time? For the right person, The Perfect Tower 2 will likely click much faster than it did for me, but for others, especially those who are not blessed with the gift of patience, they may never reach that point. For all its inherent potential and the developer's devotion to giving you a game with a gargantuan vision and everything unfiltered in your face, I give The Perfect Tower 2 a 7.5 out of 10. Thanks again for watching, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you idlers later.